Yes, Sujan.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Good.
Perfect.
So as not to do, I mean, there's still people joining from the audience, but if you can backtrack kind of to where we were when we departed, it would be great to kind of recap the last couple of things maybe, and then move on from there if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Should I start sharing my screen again?
Please.
Okay, perfect. And just shout out if there's any other issues. All right, so just a quick recap. We've talked about already a few things you can do to republish maybe some of your flops by adding new imagery, adding click to tweets, adding some quotes, and things like that. You can do the exact same thing for your successful content, but what I'm talking about here for your successful content, what I'm going to get into is using different formats of content. So things like infographic, white papers, video, slide share, even just sending an email to your newsletter. Those are things, a few ways you can use to republish your content and repurpose. I'm going to talk more extensively about that in a second, but do I have the green light to continue?
Please. And I'm not seeing your deck if you've tried to pull it up, so.
Okay, let me double check 1 second. All right. You know why? I didn't share my screen.
Got
All right,
it.
can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So again, we're just going to talk about quickly some new formats to use. And I love these new formats because it can help you get even more traction. For example, if I was at like a speaking event, I spoke in front of a few hundred people in Vancouver talking about growth hacking and a few growth hacks. Even if I got 100% of the room's attention, I got 300 people max. I put it on SlideShare, and that same presentation got 8,000 views. 8,000 is greater than 300. Although the quality of those 300 were very engaged. They were forced to sit and hear me talk for a while, but 7,000 also helped me get a further reach. And so what you can definitely get a lot of value by republishing and repurposing your content in different formats. So let's jump straight into it. Infographics. Yes, people have used infographics to death, but they're coming back, guys. Gifographics, also infographics embedded into an article. Long form content is huge. You can take some of the stats you have. You can make these mini graphics. Instead of publishing a stat, create an image with a visualization of that stat. You can use tools like Venage, Visium, and things. And those are great places and Canva even, to take simple data and turn it into something visual. So this should actually be visual representation of numbers, not just infographics, but it does work. They don't work the same way they used to, where you could use an infographic to build links and gain SEO value. Now I talk about using infographics as the secondary approach once you've already written this content. White papers and ebooks are great. What you want to do is look at the last 12 months of your traffic. Look at the content that's gotten the most traffic, if you have any, and look at the source that's driving the traffic. If you're getting good organic traffic, you might want to go into this strategy. So this is also in the form of a content upgrade. So what I mean by this is you can take those pages that get traffic, those articles, and simply make a PDF version of it. You can also go deeper and turn them into, let's say you talked about content marketing and 10 tactics or whatever. You can go and expand upon that. So an article, because it's published a year ago or just because it's done, you hit the publish button, doesn't mean you can't add to it. And just because you add to it doesn't actually have to mean it's visual on the web. It could be a downloadable PDF, and it's a great way to get an email address along with that PDF. So what I always do is I take my best content every quarter and I just make them downloadable PDFs. There's a company called thecontentupgrade.com for I think about $100 or $120 a PDF. They will actually design a fancy design and create the content upgrade for you. Super simple way to kind of just stretch that content, and it's only good to do with your best content, because Otherwise, it's just not going to be meaningful enough numbers. In fact, I don't know if people have noticed this on my blog, but in 2015, I published a book called 100 Days of Growth. And it was a book on growth hacking with 100 different tactics included. What I did was I took the best hacks and I themed them together. So I did one on 17 mobile marketing hacks for people who have a mobile app and they're marketing that. Some on email nurture campaigns, some on conversion, some on customer retention and things like that. And I themed them and put them as blog posts. I kind of inverted the process where I created the ebook first and then the content to follow. The difference in the content was that it was an expanded, more blown out version of the book. It got into more details, examples, and so on. Next is video. If you look at my YouTube channel, it is all repurposed content. I don't hide it. Why is video so powerful? Because I don't know if you can see me right now, but when you can see emotion, when you can see me smile, when you see somebody make faces and smile and you can see passion. Also, people learn differently. Some people like audio. Some people listen to podcasts on their way to work. Some people read blog posts. Some people read an ebook or on their Kindle, or they listen to audiobooks. However, your learning style, audio and visual, are still very, very prominent. It's the old school learning in the classroom kind of similarities. So video is very, very powerful. Even if it worked really well for you or didn't work well for you in written form, visual form could work well. Now, it's important to remember that audio and visual, when you're trying to teach or showcase something very complicated, you kind of have to dumb it down. You have to either verbally say stats that are important or trim out the fat that doesn't matter. Also, another thing to keep in mind is nobody wants to hear people rant on for 10, 20, 30 minutes. YouTube video will drop out unless people have opted into webinars and things like that. They likely will not watch a 20-minute video. So keep your video short. Audio, on the other hand, can be a bit longer, 5 to 10 minutes. But just remember that people can understand. It's important to add the filter of, can they understand this in a visual or audio format? And again, Meerkat no longer exists, but YouTube, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, all of these things you can do. You can do Facebook Live and literally just share your best content. What I do is I snap some of my best content. In fact, like when I give, before I go on stage to when I give speaking engagements, I just snap some of my favorite slides and I talk about, like, for 10, 15 seconds at a time, some of the most important points of my presentation as a way to just hype up the presentation. I tweet at it. I'll do a Facebook Live and things like that. Again, different formats, just expanding the reach of your audience is very, very important. And why video is so powerful, again, outside of the emotion and you can see the enthusiasm, the passion, is that anybody can write a piece of content. People will edit it, they will perfect it. You know, there's a lot of people ghostwriting it, but you can't just BS your way into a video. Most people, I mean, if you're a professional actor, maybe, but most people aren't professional actors. So when you showcase your knowledge via video or audio, it passes the sniff filter of BS. You kind of have to know it to say it, unless and if you don't know the topic, then you will be very easily called out, or it will be very clear. Again, another great way is SlideShare. SlideShare is a huge network. People forget that it's not just like uploading your slides and sharing a link. It's uploading your slides and putting it into a network that has millions and millions of users. And guess what? It's owned by LinkedIn, meaning you get the power of LinkedIn. And so what I do is I upload my presentations into SlideShare. I will make sure I tweet it out, I share it out, I email my newsletter or my list this. I will do a little bit of ads, and what I want to do is just get the word out, and it will spark SlideShare to essentially push it within their categories. And if it gets featured on the homepage, bam, you get tens of thousands of views. A guy who does this really, really well is Ross Simmons. Check his stuff out. I think it's his Twitter handle is the coolest cool, which is cool handle. But anyways, SlideShare, very, very powerful. And it's an easy way just to leverage it without doing much more work. I already mentioned this a couple times. Email newsletter. If you're not emailing your list, well, first and foremost, if you don't have an email newsletter, install SumoMe, install Opt-in Monster, and get a newsletter. Send an email out weekly. It's a great way. Email is, people forget about this, is probably the best traffic source for content marketers, because you're speaking to people who have opted in, who want to hear from you, your fans, potential customers and clients, and these people will all share your stuff. In fact, like I said, they've opted into hearing from you, and you can keep growing this list, and it's something you can own. You can't own Google traffic. You're pretty much leasing it. If you're buying traffic, once you're out of money, you are done. But an email newsletter, your email list, you own it. So what I like to do is I send a weekly newsletter with whatever content you want to kind of push out. You can do the lazy way of literally doing a full RSS feed. So every time you publish an article, it gets the RSS feed. RSS triggers an email to be sent out. Or you can go more in depth and write something custom, introducing the article and link to it. You can also curate content. So what I mean by this is, if you don't have time to write content, just share some of your favorite content on the web. By being the source of information, you are increasing your authority. You don't always have to be the creator of information or the writer. You can be how people find out about the best and latest and greatest. And again, along that way, send some of your old stuff out there, right? So take something you wrote a year ago, update it a bit with more maybe compelling information, and share it with your list. In fact, a little secret, I was training a new hire to use our email marketing software, MailChimp, and we republished this article, 100 Ways to Promote Content. And all we did was change the title to the 2016 updated version. We added like 2 more tips, and we forgot to like turn off our email RSS trigger, so everybody got an email with that article, and that content got brought back to life. And oh man, it got another 1,000 shares. Yes, we have a big email list and whatnot, but it was an accident that ended up working out so well. And so I like to go and showcase some of my best content.
That's awesome. If I could just jump in and like share some experience that we had at SEMrush was, there was a lot of concern all the time that people are hammering their email list too frequently. But we found and found statistically that the opposite is often true. If you have genuinely engaged people on your email list, they may be expecting you to email them as frequently as once a week, or maybe even more frequently, and that you get sometimes more unsubscribes when you are not staying in touch frequently. I don't know if you have any experience along those lines, but that was amazing to see.
Yeah, same exact thing. If you don't email us enough, they're going to unsubscribe more often. And I knew the power of email when a few years ago I went on vacation, and I thought I had like set a few campaigns to go out. I pretty much like went off the grid for 2 weeks, and I came back. Apparently, the 2 emails I normally sent out weren't there. I had 50 emails from people saying like, "Hey, where's your newsletter? I haven't heard from you in a while. Are you okay?" So you built some pretty good, like a pretty loyal following, and people are expecting to hear from you. So send them information.
Yeah, they trust you, and they keep wanting to listen to you. So that's how you keep them on board. Sorry, you go on ahead, because I know we're behind the 8 ball here.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll power through the next couple things. The simple premise here is syndicate your content. Again, Mint does it with CNN Money. You can just go to CNN Money and you will see Mint's content. In fact, they're probably now, Mint is also syndicating content from other bloggers, smaller sites, because they built up a pretty big company. Business to Community. does this. Business Insider also does this. Huffington Post. All these major publications do this. I'm not saying go and get the big ones out there immediately. You might not be able to, but I'm saying it's a possibility. All of these sites do it. My favorite places: Medium, Examiner, Quora. So Quora is a Q&A site. Don't just republish your whole article. Go answer a question. Go look for questions that your article solves and rewrite it in a shorter form. LinkedIn and Medium are my two favorite places. If you're in marketing, inbound.org or Growth Hackers. Reddit. There's easy ways. In fact, like it's easy to publish content on Reddit, and it can just get in front of people. It might not be your audience, but you're milking this content as far as it can go. With LinkedIn, it's great because the LinkedIn network will help you get more traction. And let's think about it this way: LinkedIn is if you're a B2B, if you're in the B2B space, LinkedIn is all your professional contacts. Why would you not want them to see your content? Yeah, some of them might look at your blog, maybe if you've got them off of LinkedIn, but realistically, all of them go on LinkedIn, and why not get them where they go? And so it's like getting the right people at the right time. Same with Medium. Great. All of these places have networks and can help you get exposure. Medium, like I said, is there's all these blogs that host their blog on Medium, and so you can actually get submitted to there. In fact, you'll see my content on readthink.com, which is powered by Medium. It's a HubSpot blog on entrepreneurship and business, and I publish my content on Medium, and ReadThink has asked to pretty much pull it from my Medium posting to theirs. And so, bam, I got exposure to thousands and thousands of people that I normally wouldn't. And it's the same content I've used elsewhere. So it maximizes it. Reddit, yes, it's full of trolls and it's hard to get on if you want to get upvotes and get shares, but it can drive pretty decent traffic. And again, it's a link back to your site, and it only takes a few minutes. Examiner, this one's okay. This is a site that openly takes content. So again, like I want to present all the information of what can take content. I've already talked a lot about LinkedIn, and that's it, guys. There's a lot of things you can do. You can kind of just simply update content with new images and headlines to get more out of it. You can repurpose it into different new formats and repost it and distribute it to really get a lot more life out of your content. And I urge you to look back at your last 12 months of analytics and look at what you can repurpose. And thank me later on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, aside from looking internally at your Google Analytics for the content that happens to be performing really well for you, are there other tools that you may frequently turn to for an idea of what your audience is receptive to, what they're liking and sharing?
Yeah, so I would look at like BuzzSumo. I'll also just always keep a tab out on my competitors. I have BuzzSumo articles, filters on my competitors. I want to see what else is happening in the space, any type of community there is. It's easy for when you're in the marketing space because it's really obvious, right? A lot of people are blogging, they're pretty vocal, but there's communities for all types of industries. Slack and Facebook groups are some of the best places to find these communities. I found you go on those and just ask people like, hey, what do you want to read about? Email your list and ask them. In fact, this weekend, I'm going to email my whole list and say, like, guys, I'm running out of content. Tell me what you want to know. And I'm going to ask people a bunch of to ask me a lot of questions, and I'm going to turn those into videos. So don't be afraid to ask for content ideas from your audience.
Yeah, your audience probably loves it when you ask them too. They probably respond pretty well. So that's great. I have to say thanks, Sujan. A great presentation. Thanks everybody, including the audience, for sticking with us through the technical issues. And I hope to, as I said, read more stuff on your blog, Sujan, and get better acquainted with your stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. We're going to move on here, and while we're switching over, our next speaker was supposed to be Jeff Coyle coming on at 1:30. We're running roughly a half an hour behind. I see Jeff, I see his face, and he needs to unmute or be unmuted so we can actually hear him. But
hi, Michael, how are you?
There we go. Hi, Jeff. So, Jeff is going to speak on semantic analysis, content planning, and optimization strategies for Hummingbird and RankBrain. So Hummingbird sped up the ability of Google to crawl and index information and add it to the way that it starts to rank things, simply because it can consume it more rapidly and understand and parse the kinds of queries that it was seeing and the kind of information it was seeing. So great for that. RankBrain, probably the best instance of machine learning taking place today, that Google is training all of their multiple factors that they used to perhaps rely on human raters to do to figure out content and such, and building that into a machine learning model that is going to automate it and make it more effective over the long term. So Jeff Coyle, data-driven search engine marketing executive, 16 plus years experience product managing and also wrangling website networks. God bless you. And now as chief revenue officer, which is a kind of somewhat peculiar title, but maybe for a startup, Market Muse, which I think everybody in the audience should remember that name. They may not have heard a whole lot about it, but the idea of what you're doing is awesome, and looking forward to hearing more about that. You're doing it for content marketers, for search engine marketers, for agencies and e-commerce managers who sometimes struggle with an idea about subject matter and topical relevance. And you do this to build their topical authority, to improve their content quality, to turn semantic research into actionable insights. And since all B2B and practically everybody is relying on content marketing, you're in the sweet spot. So you also have sat in the seat of a lot of our audience, and you've operated an inbound marketing consultancy, and you've managed a traffic search and engagement team for a B2B tech publishing and lead generation company, TechTarget. So all of that said, I'm going to get out of your way and let you have at it, Jeff, because I'm sure you got great stuff for us.
Oh, thanks, Michael. And that's pretty good breakdown. And being in the sweet spot with Hummingbird, looking at semantic analysis, and trying to make it at least a little bit less dry as well. Trying to make it turn content planning into something where you're taking advantage of your strengths, filling gaps of content, and then transitioning from thinking about things only as keywords in isolation. Can you see my screen yet?
Not yet.
All right, good stuff. Let me take care of that. All right.
And here we go.
All right, good stuff. And thanks for that great introduction. So really taking a different way of thinking about things, not just as keywords in isolation, or trying to optimize for peppering in words into pages and determining whether that's going to lead you to getting search engine rankings, and really flipping that upside down and starting to think about the topics that you wish to cover and become an authority on. Also, Sujan, great presentation we just listened to. He speaks about audience targeting, and really thinking about an empathetic view on the content that you're creating, and what user intent profiles and searcher intents does your content need to satisfy in order to represent that model of authority. And then part of that, as you mentioned with RankBrain, involves answering complex queries, because a great percentage of searches that go through Google and go through the search engines are unique. They're one-off questions or one-off things that users need. How can you build content that answers a great deal of potential user intent profiles, and also maybe not directly answers some complex queries, but it's giving the best page of content for a lot of things about these concepts that you're looking to cover. And then that speaks to quality. No one's really been thinking about quantifying quality, or how I can make sure that what I write is comprehensive. until very, very recently. And that's something that, you know, we're really looking to do, to say, what does it mean? It's not just long form content. It's also content that speaks the user's language, not just, you know, the actual language, but the things that they are looking to read, answers the questions that they're looking to answer, and, you know, tells the story of empathy within, you know, a content planning construct. And that's really the key of thinking, not just, I want to rank for this keyword. No, I want to be the authority on this topic. I want to actually answer all the questions and satisfy the user needs wherever they are in their purchasing process. Maybe it's a bicycle discussion, or maybe just something where they're just looking to answer a particular question. And to do this, I really love to kind of break this down into traditional content planning and how you can then put a semantic spin on it. And the first thing to think about is, who are you? I have to become very self-aware in order to, you know, look in the mirror and say, do I deserve to perform well in this area? Do I deserve the rankings that I am going for? Do I deserve to be, based on what my content inventory tells the world? Am I the best resource for the things that I am ranking for? And we'll get into a few other things in a minute, but sometimes we find that we actually are ranking for things that we don't deserve. And what can I do in those situations? And in the last presentation, again, you know, thinking about ways to repurpose content that's performing well, that weaves into some of these things too. But what does your content tell the world? It's the traditional content inventory items, things like my titles, the text of my content, what existing rankings do I have, what does my site architecture tell the search engines about the prioritization of the categories that I'm going for. Maybe I've got a blog post that's hidden 19 levels below my inventory, below my homepage, because I haven't done anything except installed the default WordPress structure, but I consider that really important. And so what does that site architecture tell me? It tells me that I don't really consider that page all that important. So those traditional content inventory concepts are important, but also, again, to say, where am I targeted? What is the collective of my content mean? And where have I really exhibited my expertise and answered questions while providing the information that my goal, you know, my target users and my target audience is interested in? And all of those things now, with the transition to topics and the transition to where the search engines can start to understand user intent, it tells the story of authority, in addition to what has been in the past, you know, before 2013, where it was just, you know, individual metrics on page, individual metrics off page, combine them all together to tell the story of what makes up an authority. And so where you start, like I was touching on with a semantic content inventory, looking, you know, first thing is you have to understand how to do a basic content inventory, grabbing all of your pages, you know, whether you're using a crawler, whether you're, because you keep spreadsheets of your information, you know, thinking about word counts, thinking about where my title tags, which kind of give a tip about the types of things that I'm targeting, where it sits within my site architecture. It's then taking that and adding, like I mentioned, a semantic spin. What types of content have I published? What types of users does the content make happy when they read this and really satisfy their needs? And thinking about, maybe I've got tens of thousands, maybe I've got thousands of content items. This is a big bear of a task. What are the thresholds that I'm going to use to determine if I'm going to dig another level deeper and manually evaluate content to determine whether I want to take action on it or use that for updating, repurposing, or even for creation of new content? And when you build those thresholds, maybe it's your top 10 performers, maybe it's your #1 lead converters, or maybe it's something where you just think this is great content and you're not really sure what happened with your promotion or your distribution that didn't lead to a lot of success. And you've got to sync up all of your current distribution channels, and that's something that you want to dig in and analyze. When you get into that content, the content that you're going to manually identify as something to really focus on, it's saying, okay, what am I looking at? Maybe I've got my title target, and maybe I understand what I was shooting for my focus topics of this item. Maybe I can look at my rankings. What is this page ranking for? And I can say, okay, what other things did I cover well on this? Is there something to the fact that my article about X also included great subject matter expertise about Y, Z, and A? these other topics within this content item. And there's something to that I can use to say I need to write new content that exhibits expertise on these related topics, and say, okay, the fact that I included all of these related topics, the fact that I included them elegantly in my content, and I didn't just pepper them into a bulleted list, or do it in some sort of thin content listicle of some sort. It tells the story that I actually have covered these things well, and I've aligned them well to the target topics that I'm shooting for. And then the last piece is really thinking about within my inventory, does this match the goals of my business? I've seen countless times as analyzing sites that 80% of the traffic to a B2B tech company, 80% of the traffic to a large publisher or an e-commerce site is going to target queries and content that doesn't even mesh with their current business plan. It doesn't mesh with what they're published in 2016. Maybe all of their traffic's going to 2014 content, written about things that they don't even sell anymore, or it's such a low margin e-commerce product. It's really taking the steps of who am I speaking to? What are the topics I'm targeting? Have I exhibited subject matter expertise? And then that last piece saying, does this match what I'm going for? Does this match what my publication, what I'm spending money on in 2016 in order to write content? And does it meet the topic goals of the business? And that's when you can really get into the fun stuff. And that's what when you're saying, okay, I know what my strengths are. I know where I'm very powerful and I have authority. How can I use that to my advantage? How can I take information about the fact that I am maybe a top 5 in this area and say, okay, well, I didn't do a great job at analyzing all of the user intent profiles within my target audience. And maybe I need to write individual pages that go for each one of those target audiences because I've already got some existing authority with the pieces that I've written. Finding those strengths and then also seeing situations where maybe I've got a gap in a related topic. Maybe when I was writing about a particular target topic, I've got a related topic that's saying, oh, come on, write about me. I'm very, very related. All you've got to do is publish that one piece about that related topic, and it's going to piggyback on that existing authority and allow all boats to rise. Because with semantic analysis targeted content planning, that's the big deal here. It's every item within the topic, every item within these groups, when you improve, grows every other item. They speak the language. This is the model of authority. This site tells the story that someone who is an expert on this topic likely would tell. And if you're the one telling that story, it creates, you are that model of authority, and all those boats rise. You're going to see home pages generate, more queries are going to be leading to your home pages and individual content pages appearing. I call it a term pool multiplier or a topic cluster multiplier, and you start to see those things happen over and over and over again. When you see pages on your site where 1,000 words you couldn't have possibly targeted, whether you're using a third-party tracking tool like SEMrush or SpyFu, you see all these queries appear per page, and you say, okay, wow, this page is a huge authority on 1,000 content items. I've got to expand this subject matter expertise. I got to write new content that speaks the language of this collective of queries that's leading to this page.
That's awesome. Jeff, can I jump in with a quick question I see here? So clearly, an understanding of what kind of content you have, getting a sense for maybe what you lack, how well your stuff is performing in particular, and then mapping it to, for lack of a better word, funnel. We have a funnel, prevents, if you have this complete set of content, you don't have holes for people to fall out of and exit your funnel, more or less. So how difficult, and this gets to the question, how difficult is it to do the kind of audit that you're talking about here?
To do the type of audit that I'm thinking about here, the difficulty is time. And if you are not an expert, if you've gotten by and you haven't, and what you're writing about, you're not really an expert in the funnel, you don't understand the sales process, or you don't understand the audience. So there are some research components. How difficult is it to think about the content types and the audience and do that type of research? To do it at a keyword level is should be relatively self-explanatory. To get that next level of related topic information really does require that you're analyzing competitors, does require that you're thinking about user intent profiles, and it is a relatively manual process if you don't have some information resources or just have your own subject matter expertise. It can be a challenge, and it's a work an hour intensive or labor intensive process to really dig in. But the benefit that you can reap from this information is amazing. And being able to identify that if you publish these sets of items and this is what you spend your content budget on, is going to be successful, or going to be 90% or 10 times in some cases more successful than your normal editorial planning process. Really, it makes it so that process is worthwhile. And that's what, my business, we're building a system that does these things automatically. But even if you aren't using a solution like ours, using traditional keyword tools can get you part of the way, if not a great deal of the way there, along with your subject matter expertise. Or even your audience research. Sujan gave a great example in the last presentation of asking your audience what they're interested in, asking your audience what they're experts on. That type of information can be built into doing your own topic modeling, for sure. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. That's a great answer. Thanks for that. We're running into about the 10-minute mark, just to let you know where you stand.
Certainly. Well, yeah, and I kind of touched on this, but fortifying strong content, it tells a similar story that we were just hearing about. It's how can I take this content and take advantage of it? How can I say I want to build that into maybe premium content that is going to gather email registrations? How can I take this and expand it, the depth of coverage? You've got an item that has, the seven ways of doing something. Well, maybe you need to expand that into 11 to cover some things, and then build some links and build a kind of a cluster of content that tells a little bit more of the story and fills gaps. People that are really focused on keywords in isolation, the telltale sign of a content item that was written really focused on keywords, it has a lot of focus keyword or target keyword mentions, but all of the related concepts that a subject matter expert would likely expect to see if someone was covering this topic, all of those related topics are missing. All of those there's user intent blind spots, like you mentioned, Michael, where it's only talking about one part of the funnel, and there's nothing else on the site that's going to satisfy. Maybe it's all awareness. What is this? And there's nothing about evaluation. There's nothing about how to purchase. There's nothing about ways to implement. And those are common, funnel structures. Really doing research about how to map your content to your specific targeted customer or audience funnel, or the ways that they think about the world, is this top priority. And combining that with semantic inventory is a 1-2 punch. That is a big deal. And there's a secret tactic at the bottom here that says if you're entering a new space and you don't have existing authority, one of the quickest ways that you can build it, if you have existing authority on another topic, is to think about the bridges. Think about the topics that are in between A and C. And when you figure out that bridge content, building out content packages in the middle that connect the dots between your existing authority and those new areas that you're trying to get, will give you a leg up instead of just publishing that new content on unrelated concepts and hoping.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's AC bridge content, one of my favorite things. So competitive priorities, I know we certainly are, this is a topic that you can talk about for 15 hours from a semantic content perspective, but you always need to be thinking about competitive priorities. Competition and things that relate to it, like some search engine marketing tools think about it as keyword difficulty. Really thinking about this as a concept level. How hard is it going to be for me to enter this space? Where am I doing well already? Where are my really, really big entities or authoritative entities in my focus topic regions? And what can I learn from them? What behemoths have written a lot of content? What ways are they speaking to the entire funnel or all the audience groups? What situations can I find in competition that are kind of exciting for me? Maybe everyone's doing the same thing in the search results. And I might be able to do something a little bit differently, or I do exactly what they're doing, add a lot more value, and then add even more value. A lot of times in e-commerce, you find this situation where you've got really thin content pages across the board, and you can really take that and run with it if nobody's taking the initiative to build great authoritative subject matter expert level content. But it's not just in e-commerce; it's really across the board. It's saying, what can I do that's going to tell a little bit more of the story and really establish myself as that authority. A lot of businesses I run into, they rest on their laurels. They don't assess what I call the ROSS, risk of standing still, for their most successful pages. They just say, hey, this is going to be there forever. No one's ever going to touch me. And what's happening behind the scenes a lot of time is people have taken, traditional keyword targeting strategies, and they're just eating away at your traffic, and you don't even know it because you haven't been thinking about it this way. You'll see people who are, they're like, I can't beat this guy on this authority keyword, but I'm going to write an individual content item about every single question from Quora or every single user intent profile targeted keyword variant within this space, and I'm just going to eat him alive, and he's only going to have traffic from that one head term, and then over time he's going to degrade because then I'm going to start publishing my entity content. People will, take advantage of you standing still, and so thinking about what it would mean if your most successful pages disappeared. What are the publishing frequencies of your competitors? What's the typical quality and coverage strengths of your competitors, and how can you stay one step ahead of those situations? And if you find competitors that are standing still, how can you exploit that to your advantage? Also, do you have people that just are making SEO mistakes? I mean, this is, what is the things that are hiding behind registration walls? They are doing great videos. They're doing great things, and they're just not optimizing them. They're not, doing things like transcription. They're not looking to really, maybe they have a technical flaw, but they got PDFs and SERPs, and they're not building those out into landing pages. All of these things can map to tell you a different kind of story, to say, what is the ideal content package that I can put together that's going to speak to as many people as I can. It's going to also take advantage of some of these competitive situations that I might identify. You're going to see it in B2B tech as well. Maybe there's a lot of people who they missed the class about filling the whole funnel, and they think that the best leads are only going to be at the tail end of the funnel, right in the purchasing phase. So they're like, write only content about the purchasing phase. They don't realize that they need to really be there. They need to extend and write to everyone, as many of those people, to really be an authority. So finding those fun situations where people have major blind spots, whether it's on content topics, whether it's on specific keywords where you can take advantage of, or even whether it's on user intent profiles. And there was a great in the last presentation thinking about update options. Always when you publish content, put your update frequency on there. You need to know when you need to update that item. If this does really well or beats a threshold, you should be going back and updating that, republishing it, sending it out your email newsletter, republishing it into your social media channels. But also you should need to be updating it to make it more powerful and more authoritative. You might not have hit all the possible related concepts and target demographics and target pools. Maybe you need new content that's very related that you can integrate with these powerful pages. Creatively expanding content is the key to taking advantage of your strengths and filling in the gaps that just naturally happen, because not all authors and editors are perfect. And that's always going to be the case. You're always going to have situations where you can expand and integrate content to tell the story and appeal to more user intent profiles. And here on the bottom is another kind of a trick of the trade here. It's if you've got low quality content groups, look in the mirror, acknowledge it, feel bad about yourself really quickly and say, hey, can I patch these together into something that is high quality, or should I abandon this group and do some redirection? Patching together some really thin stuff into something that speaks the language of your audience can be a quick way out of some problems that you've probably already inflicted on yourself. Whether it be from a Panda penalty or Panda related degradation, or something where you're just not meeting the needs, or you're not able to compete in an area. So that's something that when you then piece those items together, publish an authoritative piece on top of it. Publish an angle, a different angle. Maybe it's a different content type or a different, focusing on two different user groups. Put them out at the same time, and you'll start to see an increase in the success rate for those items, because thin really doesn't win unless you've got a lot of off-page power. And then take it all and put it together. This is what content planning is all about. It's about inventory. It's about assessing strengths, filling gaps, meeting the needs of your users, really turning it yourself. If you have been an ego-driven person, turn yourself into an empathetic person that thinks about your readers and thinks about the variants, thinks about the user intent profiles, and says, have I covered all the things that my users want? Does this page that has a really poor bounce rate that is ranking, is there something I can do to make that not the case, that's more than just a conversion rate optimization trick? Is it to meet the needs of these users? Can I apply this information from my competitive research and maybe take advantage of or exploit some things that a less sophisticated in-house team or somebody who's just not looking at this page with as much need or with as much desire as you are? Can you take advantage of that and really just slam them into the ground if that's what your goal is to trump? And then tying it together, your best friend are your editors. Your best friends are your content creators, people that can execute content if that's not you. So walk into those meetings, walk into those planning meetings, talking their language, talking about angles, talking about subject matter expertise, and maybe building out what you think would be great. They're going to be the ones that add value on top of it. Maybe they know the product really well. Maybe they know the customer really well and the problems that the customer has, or the common questions or things that they're thinking about. Maybe you didn't know when you were building out this information. Collaborate with the experts inside your team, collaborate with those editors, and come to the table with some value that you've learned about this from doing this type of research and looking at your inventory. And that's going to strengthen your relationship with the users, because you're more empathetic, you're thinking about the things that they need. And it's going to strengthen, if you have a big in-house team or a lot of writers, it's going to strengthen your relationships with editors who often are the subject matter experts. And if you come to them and just kind of tell them what to do and, hey, write about this keyword, they're not going to think much of you. But when you can speak the language about, hey, this actually is what users are thinking, this is what they're doing, this is the information that I used to make these recommendations, they might want to shake your hand a few more times and then just going off on their own and cursing you if you're an in-house SEO.
That's great. You're getting close to the conclusion here, I imagine, and that's
sure.
awesome. I just wanted to say, this is all great stuff, especially because you seem to have brought us full cycle. At the end, we're talking about where the fingertips hit the keys and the rubber hits the road, and getting results for people. So just please.
It's awesome to think that you can take something that's so about, hey, I want to rank on this keyword and turn it into, no, I want to be an authority on this concept. I want to build the content package that tells the story that an expert would tell. And that's the transition that search engine optimization experts have to make to succeed now. They can't just rely on keywords in isolation or a keyword list or a spreadsheet. They've got to be thinking.
Just like an agile developer would be relying on a user story to describe the need, and that's something that I think a lot of people, when they think about it that way, like you said, that's where the results are going to be for them. So
you nailed it. You nailed it. User stories for content user stories, questions your article solves. People have question-based user stories. They have task-based user stories. Think about those user tasks. Think about the collection of complex things that go through these types of users. Think about the content types that they enjoy, because the same information can be repurposed. Sujan was talking about it, can be repurposed in n different content different content types, because not all readers. I have another presentation that talks about learner types. But not all people learn the same way. Do some research about learning types and different types of customers, whether it's via the DISC method of the dominant users, intellectual users, analytical users, or compassionate users. or whether it's via users that just have a lot of ego. Maybe your audience is typically egotistical. Maybe you need to speak to those things. So build content types. Certain people like to download PDFs. There's no reason that item can't be also a premium content item that's a slideshow. And so thinking about content types, not just to get these additional distribution channels, it's just people learn differently. And that's what, with what we're doing in Market Muse is really thinking about how people are building content, spending their money and getting inconsistent results, whether it's because it's thin content, whether it's because they think that they're an expert, or whether they've been resting on their laurels for a long time and not really thinking about competition or high quality or really what it means to be comprehensively covering a topic. We do have an offer here for Digital Olympus attendees, whether it's live or the recording. Check out what it would mean to really start to think differently about your content inventory. And I really appreciate the time and the questions. If there's any more, I'm not sure.
So I'm looking here for additional questions, and it seems that we've got some general things. I think you did a great job of covering the process, and just my question to you might be, if someone's going to take up your offer and try, Market Muse in some demonstration fashion, or on this sort of introductory basis, is this going to be difficult for them to do, or is they're going to be able to lead themselves through it?
No, certainly not. Well, if they were taking up stuff on the offer, our customer success team walks through all these use cases, whether it's to, how to perform a content inventory, how to, gauge what your next steps should be, what target topics you should be focused on. Maybe you have a named competitor. How do you think about things that way? Or maybe you have an initiative, the rest of 2016 editorial plan or calendar is already written, and you need to vet that and talk to you about, hey, which is going to be harder than others? Because you might want to focus on something, but to focus on that requires you're going to have to write a couple hundred content items seriously, that's the real deal in the situation in a lot of things.
Yeah. No, that's great. So anybody who wants to take up the offer will be able to enjoy some hands-on help from people at Market Muse, and this whole idea of moving beyond keywords is central to the way that I think about search engine marketing. I think it matters to a great many people. So thank you for that offer on behalf of the audience. I'm hoping people take this up, because this is the future, more or less. And thanks for all of that. I'm going to make a bridge now to Shayla, because your segue about the volume of content that you might have to build makes a good bridge to what Shayla wants to begin about. So again, thanks for everything, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. And on to Shayla Price for our 2:30 hour. We're just running a few minutes behind, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. But Shayla's topic today, the fundamentals of hiring the best freelance writers. So it's easy to see where we could bridge from the idea that we get a sense for who we're writing for, the personas and the segments and the audience that we're addressing. What is it that they're looking for topically? We're building a funnel, and we want them to arrive at a business goal, at an action that will help us earn our revenue, or sell our goods, whatever it is. But it's easy when thinking about, especially in a B2B aspect, but building out sufficient volumes of content can be a challenge. So thanks, Shayla, for coming on board. Shayla's an accomplished B2B content marketer. She not only creates, but also promotes content. It's the two-headed beast, and she's been there. She lives at the intersection of digital marketing, technology, and social responsibility, which is, a nice topic. I'm sure it's close to her heart. Shayla has earned her stripes working for Kissmetrics, Agora Pulse, well-known social platforms, HostGator. You think about host companies in tech, these are huge B2B content marketers and advertisers. So, there's a lot of activity there that she's been party to, and Shopify Plus. So, that platform as well. she contributes. She's an influencer. Shayla has contributed to Entrepreneur and Huffington Post. So we're very fortunate to have Shayla with us today. And Shayla, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
I'm gonna stop my screen share.
Okay. I'm also hopeful that the speakers today have a chance to get together and get to know each other better. Maybe you've met everybody on the road at conferences and such, but these are some of the best interactions that I think you have, is when you get to meet the other people, speakers at the conference.
Yes, definitely. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we got your slides up. That's great.
Okay then. Well, let's get started. Again, thank you for allowing me for the opportunity to really talk about this topic. It's near and dear to my heart. Really hiring great people is how you get great content. And like Michael said, I'm a B2B content marketer. I contribute to Entrepreneur and Huffington Post. And I've also spoke at conferences, Woo Conference and WordCamp Miami. And you can always follow me, ask me questions on Twitter at Shayla Price. Why do you need great writers? So what's the purpose of hiring someone for your team? And I start with this great quote by Seth Godin: being aware of your fear is smart, is the mark of a successful person. When we think about hiring people, we're hiring them because we have possibly a fear. we sometimes get weirded out that we have to hire somebody else out, but we have to acknowledge that fear. And overcoming it is what's going to help our business. So think about that as you begin to hire not only writers, but other people part of your team. You have to overcome it. Hire a great writer because you want to focus on your strengths. Maybe your team right now is focusing on getting a new product out. The sales team is having conversations constantly with new people trying to get leads in. Individuals are worried about email campaigns, or your public relations team is worried about getting the word out, talking to local events. They have other things to do. And writing is a part of all these components, but to do certain things. So you need to focus on your strengths, so you let the writer do it. And also you need to possibly improve your existing content. Right now, your blog posts may be relevant. You may see that you have typos and grammatical errors showing up everywhere in your white papers. And sometimes you just need to transform your old content into new formats. So you may want to transform that blog post into ebook. How do you do that? How do you get all the right components in the organization together? You will need a writer for that. I want just to attract new customers. It's time. We live in a world where we need to integrate content into our lead generation strategies. As you know, we've been talking about the sales funnel. Where does content fit? And you need individuals to write that content, to attract new customers, and also to convert consumers down the line. Allow content to be that hub for you, to really tell individuals saying, hey, we have a product, here's some information. What is that information? And you need a writer for that. And also to add content to your brand loyalty programs. We normally think of brand loyalty as that app we use at Starbucks to say, hey, we want to redeem this offer. But you also need that content. You need what words to use. You need a writer to provide that information and have that expertise. Because again, you have other people doing other things in your departments, but who is going to write the content? Some just quick tips just about why you need to really hire a great writer is first you need to just talk with your team. Why do you sit down and have a conversation about why you need a great writer? Why does your company need it? And discuss which department will benefit the most. We all don't have the biggest budget, so maybe marketing team might need it more than the sales team, or the sales team might need it more than the public relations team. Where will that writer fit into your group, into your team? Also, take notice of your fears and weaknesses. Again, you can't do everything, and you don't want to do everything. That's why you hire people. And we sometimes think of writers, hire great writers, and that's not necessarily the truth. We need someone who has expertise to create the content for those particular departments. So defining your expectations. What do you want from your writers? You need these writers. You need different types of content. You may be going through and you need blog posts. How many blog posts? Maybe 5 per month. You need ebooks. You need white papers and case studies. And also think about not just the type of content you need, but also the content topics. Exactly what would your writer be discussing? Will they be discussing SEO, content marketing, or will they be discussing if you have a company that handles automotives or something in the tech industry like wearables? What topics will that writer be tasked to do? And also think of the content levels. And that means, is this beginner level content, intermediate, or advanced? Because everyone doesn't have that knowledge. So you got to think about your writer, where they are at in that particular, I guess, funnel as well, because they might not be able to write advanced level content. If your audience are experts, you need someone to handle certain types. Acceptable in your content. So of course we don't want plagiarism. That's a big no-no. And also, what about author credit? An individual, if you're hiring a freelance writer, will you give them credit, a byline, or will it just be totally ghostwritten and given to particular people in the departments will get their bylines? And also think about your formatting guidelines. These are guidelines where you are writing your branding. Will you have to have discussing dedicating it to a certain organization, or will you co-write it with someone at a different organization, or you're in a different co-marketing initiative and you need to be part of it together? And just think about citations. Some organizations are great with just putting a link. Others want actual citations at the bottom of their page. And it just depends on your organization. Are you looking for a more research advanced writer? Or are you just looking for someone who can just do simple research online and provide that link? Define what's acceptable content. What needs to be included in that ebook and that blog post.
So Shayla, can I ask a question here? Shayla?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the question is, I see, what's acceptable content, and you're mentioning citations. What is a method of linking, or, accepting links, or is that part of this at this point?
Well, you have to discuss that with your team and also with your writer. Sometimes they may add links that you don't like. You need to find out what's acceptable. Of course, you don't want to add links from the competitors. So you just might want to create a list of all your competitors so the writer can know that.
Very important. Okay, thanks.
And here's an example from HubSpot. And this is their guest post guidelines, but it's also great when you're just hiring freelance writers. These are some of the things they don't accept. So anything covered already on their blog. So if you're having your freelance writer pitch articles of article topics, we don't want anything that's already fitting the topics that we've discussed. Nothing construing a link building schemes. Nothing that's too promotional. Again, going back to, if that freelance writer is working for multiple companies, maybe you just don't want another company mentioned, and you need to discuss that up front. And of course, nothing offensive or inaccurate. We want everything by the books. We want all the information to be the most up to date. Some organizations I know only accept research that's 2 to 3 years old. Past that. And also just be critical of the individuals and the companies that you include. That's just an example from HubSpot for their guest posts, but you can use this as an example when you're hiring your own freelance writers of what not to accept. Spreading the word. So how do you get great people on your team when you're having these expectations? So first, referrals, always the best, because you know the individual you're talking to. You can just say, hey, I'm looking for, because this happens a lot in Slack channels. You may be in a Facebook groups. Hey, I'm looking for someone. Can you refer anyone? And people have a good sense of and great writing is, so they may refer someone to you. Also social media, job boards. And if you're really interested in just looking for them yourself, top publications like those Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, and read those bylines. You already have their writing sample. So just go read their article. And if you like them, reach out to them on Twitter, or they might have their email address. Also, don't be afraid, because 43% of freelance writers look for new writing jobs every day of the week. They're constantly on the hunt for new work. So don't feel like you're interfering when you're or bothering someone. Just simply ask, I have a project, might be interested, send a quick email or a tweet to them. Example on Twitter. So on Twitter, you can type in key search word terms like freelance writer, freelance writing, or writing gigs, things of that nature, and people will be discussing those topics. And you can also look under accounts, and you might be able to find certain people who have freelance writer or freelance editor in their particular bios. So that'll help you also put a name to the person's face, and see what they're talking about and what possibly samples they have written in the past. And here's an example from ProBlogger's job board, and it's from Canva. And this is you have to think about how you're going to present your company to freelance writers. Again, it's a job interview for both of us when we were hiring the writer and for the company. So how are you going to present yourself? And I thought this was a great example. First, they company us. I think we sometimes forget about it. What do you do? What does your company provide to consumers? And they want. So topics in the second paragraph: social, content, design, email, SEO. That's what they're looking for. So you tell if the writer fits into that category, they can continue reading. And then they talk about what the typical article word length looks for them, 1,500 to 2,000 words. And you'll also need to do extensive research for this particular job. So you're telling them up front what you need just in this process, but which can can eliminate half of your writers. So if you have a good job board listing, work up front, you won't get all the examples of people just coming in there are just looking, oh, I saw your job post, what do you need? You told them what you needed in the job post. And also look at the how to apply section. You give the email address as well as the subject line, so you can filter through, and they're looking for 3 of your best published articles. So if you can do something like this on your job board, you're starting off great, because you provide all the information up front. And it just eliminates the stress at the end of hiring, sifting through hundreds of applications.
Nice.
So here are some quick notes, quick tips. Create guidelines outlining your expectations. Again, you're working with your team, you need to know what you're looking for, so that you can tell the writer, this is what I need up front. Jot down your ideal job duties for the first 30 days. Again, even though this is freelancing, in a month span, because you might actually hire this person to work 2-3 months in advance. What do you need? Do we need that ebook done today? Or do we need those 5 blog posts by the end of the month? So just like any other job, you need to have some job duties already listed out for that individual. And always seek new writers, even when you're not hiring, because as freelance writers, people are not committed to you, so they can leave after a certain project, or life happens and they can't complete a task. You just need to have people that you can contact. And that, again, if you're going through the job boards and you may hire 2 people out of 5, tell those 3 people, hey, not hiring you now, but we might have some things open in the future. Would love to keep your contact information. That's acceptable. They just want to know up front that, this is an opportunity in the future, and that you like their work. You just can't hire them at this time. Evaluating and selecting great writers. You need to have a collaborative hiring process. This was said by Steve Jobs, and I've been talking about that. It's all about teamwork, because when we look at writing, we're sometimes biased, what we've seen before. So we need to have a group effort, so we know what we need as a team to have the best content available to us. And we can only do that if we're working as a group and brainstorming. You don't want to do it yourself. A great thing to do is to create a rubric. It's just like in teaching, you need to have a rubric. So first you can list tone. What type of tone do you want the writer? Is it casual? formal. Again, going with the content levels. Will it be for beginners or for advanced customers? Word choice. Do you have specific terms that you want them to use in their writing? Are they using more words that are, again, towards the beginners, or is it something more for advanced people? And then just the organization of somebody's work. Do they have that simple organization of intro, few paragraphs, quotes, research, and then sentence structure? Do they start the same sentence off with the same word every time? These are just some simple things to look at when you're looking at people's writing. Like, does it flow? Does it manage? And you can always, again, use examples that you like and then match it up with the writers that you're getting, so you can have a balance of what you like. And that's what some organizations do that I know. They may see HubSpot or see an article they like in Huffington Post and use that as a framework when they're hiring writers. They say they want something like that, and then they use it when they're getting writing samples from other writers. And this is just a simple rubric I got from a teaching website. And of course it says student, but you can always place that with employee, freelance writer. Just look for something like if your topic is lively and interesting when they started, or do they provide support reasonings, and are they providing standards when they're writing opinions? Just it's simple. You can have like five sentences, are they weak at it, average, or strong, and just to give you a criteria of how to base. And then when you have your writers stacked up against each other, you can say, oh, this person was strong in this, we might let them do this ebook instead of this blog post, just to give you a sense of how to approach the process, because you just don't want to hire somebody based off of, oh, this is great. They have to have some kind of rubric and some measurements.
Awesome.
So writers' background, read bios, LinkedIn, personal websites, get to know who they are, find them on Twitter, see how they interact with other people, what their backgrounds are important too, because I've had in the process, just because I used to work in the nonprofit sector, I've written for the nonprofit sector, and other organizations might be going into the nonprofit sector or working on social responsibility. Right. They want to hire me for that. So just look at their background, maybe something in there sparks, and you're like, oh, we are having an initiative about that. This writer may be great because they have a background already in it. Check writing samples, just like anything in life. You want to copyscape and make sure they're not plagiarized, and make sure they're not using someone else's writing sample, because that has happened in the past, where people send in writing samples and it's not their original, they're not their own. So you just want to do a simple copyscape, and Paperator is a good tool if you want to analyze. If you're not great at spelling, grammatics, and you don't know what good looks like, you can put their writing samples into Paperator and see a pop-up of what's their level of success in achievement. It actually marks off, it's almost like Grammarly, it marks off what they've done wrong and simple things of word choice and that nature. So that's how you can learn more about your writer's background. And then just some good housekeeping when you're collecting, you should do this for hiring anyone. Send an email receipt of the application saying, hey, received your application. I'll tell them your timeline. I expect to hire somebody within the 2 weeks, or at least get back with you in 2 weeks. And also, if you're doing if you're doing trials, do paid trials, because you want to hire the best, and the best they want to get paid, and they don't want to give you free spec work. So if you're looking at a group of people and you have, like I say, 100, and you're all the way dwindling it down to like 10, let those 10 do paid trials. It's just a courtesy of, it might not be at the same rate, it might be at their full rate or just half. It's just a courtesy that you are a great company, and that you respect your writer's work, and that you just want to see if they can do a particular a writing sample for you. And here's an example from Founder. They provided me, I applied for a position, and they're just telling me, hey, we received a lot of responses. We'll get back with you by the end of the week. Yeah, nothing big. You can send that just as just saying, hey, we are looking out for you. We know you exist and we got your application. So some quick tips: involve multiple team members in the selection process so that you know that you're not being biased, and that you're providing yourself with a basis and foundation for looking for great writers. And also develop a rubric that meets your company's needs. What I provided might not meet your company's needs, so figure out what those are and put those in a rubric. And also establish a timeline to contact your applicants. So if you receive 200 applicants, send a quick email just saying we received your application and we will be deciding on a selection in a couple weeks. And then there's onboarding great writers. So you've already hired these great people, so we want them to stay. So how do we do that? Provide them with content briefs. So they don't know anything about your company. They need to be integrated just like anyone else. So provide them with the customer life cycle, buyer personas, and also editorial calendars. So the editorial calendar is not going to be handled by the writer in most organizations. It's by the content manager, content marketing manager, the editor-in-chief. Those are the usual job titles. And so provide that to the writer so they know when to provide deadlines and also who to write for. Buyer personas are important. It really helps to know who you're writing for, what terms they like to use in their writing. It just gives them a good brief, really provides some base for the writer to start doing their research. And just here's an example from a fictitious company. They provide the story of the company, what their brand story is, also the title of what the brief title of what this article or white paper is going to be about, the description, and just what the audience focuses on, and just notes. You want to, again, you're not going to do this all the time for the writer, but if you have this basis when they're onboarding, just to start them off, it's going to make your life real easy at the end of the day as they get transitioned into knowing what your company is about. And then the writing process. Will you have weekly meetings? They need to tell the writer that up front, because they need a block time, and also when you're negotiating hiring the writer, they need to know if that time was billable and if they will be compensated for that. Also collaborative editing. How will the editing process go? Will it be 1, 2, 3 edits? Will we be in a Google Doc editing together? How will that work? And how long will that take? What's the normal process for that? And any publishing duties. When we think of writing, we just think of somebody writing a blog post, but what about if they're uploading it to WordPress? Or what if they have to add the images or do the SEO component of the writing? Those are just additional duties that need to be discussed up front. And when you're doing that, then you can put them into the writing process so they can make it easier. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do. And just overall company policies. They are part of your team. Make them aware of cultural norms. That helps with email, so there's no jokes that are rude or incorrect that are said. You just want them part of the team. Payroll schedule. Let them know when they're getting paid. You'd be surprised how freelancers are forgotten sometimes in the payroll. It has happened to me. It's not pretty. It reflects bad on the organization. So you want to let them know up front, this is our pay schedule. You'll get paid just like everybody else on this particular date, every 2 weeks, every week. Just let them know. And also access to resources. So will they be part of your Slack team? Will they get access to your Facebook group? Will they have their very own email address when they're reaching out to contacts for research when they're writing articles or white papers? Do that up front. Let them know when you're onboarding. Again, just like any other employee or contract worker you will have. Content builds relationships. Relationships are built on trust, and trust drives revenue. This is stated by Andrew Davis. He's a marketing speaker and best-selling author. And this, I guess it goes back to the whole point of building content. Why do you need a reader? Because at the end of the day, you want to have relationships, you want to have that trust, and you want to have revenue. That's the goal of hiring great writers. It will help you get revenue at the end of the day if you're selecting them right, if you're thinking about the end goal, if you're working with your team and hiring these writers. So keep that in mind when you're saying, do we really need a writer? Do you really need revenue? So that's just something to keep in mind when you're having those conversations around with your team. And some quick tips: give your writers content direction, provide those briefs, let them know upfront what they need to do. Create a flexible writing process for growth. So in the beginning, you may be editing heavily, having 2 or 3 edits. They should be at the end of a month or 2 months, whatever goal you set up. They should be on their own after a while. It should be light editing at some point. And also introduce writers to your company's values. Bring them into the team. Let them know that they are part of the mission of driving, whether that's introducing customers to your new product or just spreading the word about how great your company is. Let them know about what's happening and bring them on board to your values and your mission. Any questions?
That's good. That's great, Shayla. So, thanks for fleshing out this process with examples. So, you brought up a rubric, and then you actually showed us a rubric, and thinking about how to quantify what you're getting from each writer and being able to compare them over the course of their writing for you, or compare them to each other. That was, great stuff. I actually snapshotted the screen because I want to be able to build out from that. But so, Mike, I see a question, and the question is, and of course, we only have a minute. So, I'm going to ask you the most complex question I possibly can.
Of course.
But the question is, so I've spoken to others in my company. I've built up a consensus. We have an idea what kind of content we want to build, say on a weekly or a monthly basis. Now, is there some guidance for financially what a relative newbie in this could expect? I need to do twice monthly blog posts, or I need to in the space of 60 days I have to make a killer white paper. What is there some guidance that people can use monetarily? So
when it comes to, if you want the best, you're going to have to pay for it. But I would definitely, if you say you're on a tight budget and you still want the best, you're looking for people, even by word count standards, maybe 25 cents and up per word. And that's just for blog posts. As it gets deeper into research and white papers and ebooks, it gets higher and higher, the rate. But initially, if you're just starting off, ask for referrals from people that and you look at their work and you see that it's great, this is what you want, then ask to say, how much do you charge? Get a collective sample of those people, and then you'll have a basis of what to use for your budget. And so go off with what you like, just like you're in the grocery store or anywhere when you're buying. So I want a radio, and I want that radio. How much does it cost? Oh, what features does it have? Oh, okay. And then that'll help you decide, maybe I don't want that just now. Maybe I need to go to somebody else. So just use that as a basis, a foundation for what you hope. But it starts with quality. That's what you want anyway. You want quality. So you may have to cut out some of that of your budget.
I hear that. Yes, that's great. And, the idea of samples and looking at examples and, asking people for samples of their writing or a portfolio, or visiting their own blog, or, those kinds of things. It does rely a lot on, getting examples of what they've done previously, and their relationship, writer's relationship with a client is a sample of how easy or how difficult they may be to work with. So that's great stuff. Now, what in particular would our audience say follow you on Twitter for? What are they going to learn about you?
Well, I have a lot of articles. I do mostly content marketing and just writing in general, giving out everything from a lot of my clients to just stuff that I find interesting. And just if you have any questions about freelance writing, about content marketing, anything in the B2B space, I'm here to help. And also to provide referrals, because I love the opportunity to give other people work, and that's what it's all about. And to match people up with great companies is just great. So feel free to contact me.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate that. I'm sure the audience will. And thanks for all your clarity. Really, among many of the speakers today, some of the topics were pretty complex. You did a great job of distilling this down to the essence. So, thanks for that on behalf of the audience.
No problem.
All right, thanks. I'm going to move on to Eric Munley now. Glad that we heard from, a whole string of content marketers here with all different aspects of the entire process, because we are all, cognizant of the fact that, without content, there's nothing, right? But assuming that you've got some content, you've got some website, you've got some idea of keywords, who your audience is, you may be struggling as somebody who has to take on SEO as part of your job. You may be working on content and have to do some keyword research or things on your own. So Eric Munley is going to talk about 4 essential skills for the SEO beginner. And this doesn't mean, somebody who is just going to start out doing SEO from their kitchen table or the garage. This can include professionals who have to incorporate SEO into what they do. So 10 years of experience Eric has in all facets of digital marketing, which is important to think about paid marketing and PPC and display and how it uses, you can use similar ideas about keywords in that. SEO as well, of course. Search engine optimization is a huge, part of learning SEO. I mean, it's just the same package. Going through what he did, Eric has now joined LSEO as director of SEO, and local SEO obviously being a big part of this entire package. Progressed from SEO specialist at Pepperjam to Tabcom, where he progressed, and this progression can give you an idea, if you're an SEO beginner, what kinds of career steps you may be taking. SEO specialist, marketing manager, search marketing manager in sequence, and the kinds of certifications Eric has, clearly of value. Whether you need these or not, is something that, might be subject to some questions. But Google AdWords, yes, understanding the advertising aspect that's available in search, analytics, Google Analytics, and being able to judge your SEO effect on your traffic acquisition and what the people do on your site. And Bing ads as well, because if you're ignoring Bing ads, you're probably ignoring, up to 30% of what your search traffic acquisition could be. Also interesting, Eric is certified in citizenship studies as a teacher in Pennsylvania. So bringing immigrants on board as citizens of the US is certainly an honorable thing. Munley's father to Quinn, I guess his Twitter picture has son on his shoulders, which is great, with another on the way. God bless you. And, engages in soccer, racquetball, golf, bowling, likes drawing, which is great, nice creative outlet. And Eric is happy to send everybody a free beer after his webinar, because he's also into home brewing. And, don't take me at word on that last bit. So Eric, you want to unmute your mic and come on board and say hello?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I appreciate the fantastic introduction. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Good. So I want to just step out of the way. I know we're running a few minutes behind, so if you want to just launch.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen and we'll dive right in.
Cool. Thank you.
Can everyone see this okay?
Yep, we see it. 4 essential skills.
All right, fantastic. I do want to just give a little bit of color to this presentation. As Michael so kindly said, this presentation isn't just for the person who's reading up on SEO and wants to start from their kitchen table. A lot of these skills and what I'm going to discuss is really applicable to any entry level or second tier up SEO specialist at an agency or in-house somewhere, or really even a seasoned professional that appreciates getting back to basics once in a while. As far as introduction, I'm not going to do a better job than Mike did, so I'll keep this very brief. I'm currently the SEO director at LSEO, an up-and-coming digital marketing agency here in Pennsylvania. I have spent the better part of a decade in digital marketing, kind of a varied career path. I've spent a lot of time in SEO, but I also have experience in paid search, paid social media, organic social media, business analytics, email marketing, marketing strategy, pretty much all the main digital marketing channels. I think it's important because in order to truly understand the impact of SEO, you have to kind of understand the other digital marketing channels that SEO is going to work in tandem with. This slide is extremely important because it doesn't make any sense for me to go through this presentation until I give you a little bit of information on why this topic is important to me. First and foremost, didn't think it needed to be bullet pointed, but I was at one point, like every other SEO specialist, I was an SEO beginner. So I'm a person that values kind of going back and saying to myself, what could have been done differently? What could I do to make, the next person in my position have a little bit of an easier transition? As Michael mentioned, I am a certified educator, so I value the idea of information scaffolding. What that is in layman's terms is getting a clear understanding of the basics of a certain topic, which is essentially what this presentation is about, and then using that foundation to build knowledge based on those topics that make up the foundation of your understanding. Being able to understand something like 4 essential skills of SEO establishes a foundation that can be built on. With that being said, a really solid foundation from a skills and knowledge perspective as it pertains to search engine optimization is important, if for nothing else but being able to work through the information overload. That is a very real thing out in the world of digital marketing. Our industry, I'll say our industry, but just digital marketing in general, it changes so much and so frequently that there is, hundreds of thousands of articles and white papers and infographics and videos dedicated to pretty much every facet of digital marketing. So establishing that knowledge base kind of helps the SEO beginner navigate their way through the glut of information that's out there on SEO and digital marketing in general. And third reason why this topic's important to me is just pretty personal, but in my experience, I've had the pleasure of going to college twice for 2 separate degrees, but in my marketing undergrad, this really wasn't a thing that was taught too frequently. SEO and digital marketing in general, not really something that gets part of the marketing track in most schools. And although I went to school a long time ago, I could relay information that some of our current interns at LSEO told me, that it's really not something that's being widely taught even today in 2016. So if you want to go into digital marketing, you're not going to be able to rely too much on a specific college education for it, which is why getting a handle on the basics, getting a handle on the essential skills is even more important. Just give me 1 second.
No problem. So, it's nice that you spell it out like this because I think, the audience gets to know you a little better and what's important. You seem to have a real, mature outlook on it. So that's great.
I appreciate that, Michael. And honestly, I'm a helpful guy. So anything I could do to make this journey easier for somebody that comes after me is something I'm willing to do. It's the teacher in me, probably. But the first essential skill that I want to go over is keyword research. I went back and forth whether or not to list this first or not, and I decided to because, just plainly speaking, the core of search engine optimization is keyword and search queries. If I had to explain how Google works to somebody who didn't know, Google's primary job is to match search queries or keywords or key phrases with websites and pages that most closely align to that keyword and the intent of that keyword. So, the way Google's algorithm is currently built, and I'll just say Google in place of all major search engines because every other search engine generally follows suit. But the current algorithms are built on keywords. It is probably one of the main facets of SEO that you actually have control over as the website owner, as the business owner, as the SEO specialist. As far as what specific skills make up keyword research, an SEO newcomer has to know the tools at his or her disposal for proper keyword research. We're going to discuss tools a little bit later, but just briefly speaking, tools like WordStream, tools like obviously the Google AdWords Keyword Planner, tools like SEMrush are pretty widely used for keyword research in my industry. Not only do you have to know the tools at your disposal for keyword research as an SEO newcomer, but you also have to have an understanding of the keyword metrics inside of those tools. You're going to see search volume, you're going to see competition, you're going to see a keyword difficulty score, you're going to see estimated cost per click on the keyword level. And being able to understand that for your own purposes and also understand it to relay that information to a client or to your boss if you work in-house is extremely valuable. Once you're able to use the tools and understand the data that you can get out of the tools, it's a very, very good skill to have for any SEO, including the SEO beginner, to be able to overlay trends and intent on top of those metrics. Google's become more and more advanced as far as their algorithm goes, where they're really trying to get down to the intent of a search query. If you search for the word horse, Google's trying to parse out whether or not you want to buy a horse, whether or not you want to buy horse supplies, whether or not you're just looking for information on a horse. So being able to understand intent around keywords and keyword trends is extremely useful overlay in keyword research. Probably the most time-consuming part of keyword research that any SEO beginner is likely tasked with is going through the huge data set and filtering and prioritizing keywords. Whether that's based on, you're obviously going to filter out keywords that don't apply to your business, but whether your prioritization is based on competition or search volume or any kind of specific intent-related goal, it's very important to be able to complete that process.
Definitely. Thinking about that particular part of it, there can be so many dimensions to the selection process that definitely is an essential thing to walk into that process knowing what it is that's most important, because otherwise you can get lost in the thicket.
Absolutely. And it seems like a pretty granular task, but its importance kind of mandated the fact that I list it separately. Just a couple other initial, sub skills as related to keyword research. Any SEO newcomer or SEO beginner or really SEO specialist of any kind, I still do this, has to know how to create and implement a keyword mapping strategy. Essentially being able to identify target keywords and then identify the pages on your client's site or your business's site that most closely associate with those keywords. That keyword mapping document is going to be what all of your content optimization is driven from. So being able to put that together is a vital piece of the whole keyword research and implementation process. I'd be remiss if I didn't include reviewing competitor keywords as an important part of keyword research. As Shayla said earlier, it's always a good thing. Imitation is the sincerest part of flattery. So being able to go and take a look at what your competitors are targeting, it's always good information to have, especially to relay to a client. And last but not least, kind of goes back to the original point about knowing the tools at your disposal, being able to continually track keyword rankings to gauge progress. There are a lot of people that don't think keyword rankings are a useful KPI, but especially if you're on the agency side and you're in the service side of SEO, clients are going to want to see progress in their rankings. So being able to have a tool at disposal and communicate progress in keyword rankings is extremely important for the SEO newcomer. The next point is a little bit of a cheat, but I did want to include this skill as a holistic single skill, because for any SEO specialist or any search engine optimization professional, even the entry level SEO or the newcomer to SEO, being able to look at a website and website properties and audit from an SEO best practice perspective is an absolute vital part of the job. I've yet to run into an SEO professional that hasn't had to do this at some point in his or her career. I try to categorize site auditing into 9 points that I'll go over very briefly, but any SEO professional needs to be able to address each one of these points intelligently and keep their client or businesses keep their wishes in mind. From an administrative analysis point of view, an SEO newcomer needs to be able to look at implementation of Google Analytics and Google Search Console and make sure that that is done correctly. They need to take a look at views and properties and settings in Google Analytics and make sure that's up to SEO best practices. They also need to make sure that Google Analytics and Google Search Console are linked and any kind of conversion tracking is set up on the site. That's pretty good place to start. Any beginner SEO needs to be able to go into Google Analytics and take a look at current traffic, identify recent trends, more specifically identify any kind of data quality issues that may be in there. Does your client have a lot of ghost spam or referral spam that needs to be filtered out? Does your client have a lot of traffic from internal IP addresses that need to be filtered out? Is there any kind of strange developments in conversion metrics like revenue or transactions that need to be discussed? Any intelligent SEO is going to have to be able to discuss this point with the client or their boss if they work in-house. Touched on competitive analysis briefly a little bit earlier, but from a site auditing perspective, knowing your competitors, knowing what kind of traffic, what kind of footprint, what kind of keywords your competitors rank for, being able to have a domain authority or a trust flow or a citation flow score that you could use as a benchmark for your competitors, extremely useful, because any client you have is always going to want to see how well their site's optimized as it compares to their main competitors. I won't belabor keyword research too much because we had 2 slides dedicated to it already. But from a technical SEO perspective, an SEO newcomer is going to have to understand the technical checklist of having a robots file for every site, having both of those things optimized and accurate. They have to be able to address things like site speed and mobile friendliness and site navigation, URL structure, whether or not there's redirects or there's page errors that need to be addressed. All of these things fall right into the SEO newcomer's wheelhouse, and honestly, site auditing is one of those skills that you get better and better at it as you do it more and more. To round out site auditing, any SEO newcomer is going to have to, and this is really a vital part of this process. An SEO beginner is going to have to look at pages on-site content to make sure it's up to snuff from an SEO perspective. I include things like page titles and meta descriptions and header tags and image title tags and alt attributes. All of those fall under the guise of content analysis. And at a baseline level, the SEO beginner is going to have to memorize, character length, pixel length on the short and long ends of page titles, meta descriptions. They're going to have to understand how to implement header tags properly, how to optimize images properly. The content analysis portion of a site audit is extremely important, and it's where you could see some big wins and show kind of your mettle as an SEO specialist. I'll just group local and social together at this point, but all the local and social checklist items, being able to ensure that NAP information, name, address, phone number information is accurate and consistent across all reputable local directories and social media platforms, extremely important. Making sure that there's citation targets, things of that nature. I work for LSEO. Obviously, local SEO is very important to us, so I'm a little bit biased on this. And last two items, domain authority analysis. With how much Google is clamping down on poor quality backlinks, this is as vital now as ever. And any SEO, from the lowest entry level search engine optimization specialist to the head of the SEO department, has to understand that if there's a client that has low quality backlinks or referring domains, and there are a lot of them, that it's very, very high priority to be able to identify those kind of poor links and go through the disavowal process. And last but not least, from a site audit, and this is something that hopefully comes more natural to an SEO beginner as they do this, but being able to compile a list of action items. What was found in the audit? What's the highest priority? What's going to move the needle the most? How to prioritize those action items for a client or your business, and be able to communicate that with the boss or a client and actually get the results that you want by completing those action items. I know that was a lot to digest, but there's no way around it. Site auditing is a process.
Mm-hmm.
The third essential skill for an SEO beginner is content creation and promotion. You can't possibly talk about SEO in 2016 without talking about content. I absolutely refuse to use the whole content is king, so I'll just skip right over that. But this is something that's going to be included in your scope of responsibilities as an SEO professional, whether you're a newcomer or a seasoned veteran. You are going to have to be able to brainstorm topics around target keywords, trending topics, high intent keywords. You're going to have to use keyword research and topic brainstorming sessions to create and execute a content calendar, based on research and based on quantitatives. I always like to include this bullet point, but when you're an SEO, you're not writing a term paper. You're not writing an article for the newspaper. You have to be able to create content for the web, whether that's an infographic, whether that's a video, whether that's a white paper, whether that's a blog post. There are SEO considerations for content, interlinking intelligently, image, alt, and title tags, proper implementation of header tags. All of these things only kind of exist in the digital content realm. So it's very important that you know how to create content for the web. Of utmost importance to any SEO, particularly SEO beginners, to be able to fine-tune your content-based outreach. It's one thing to create this fantastic content that's based on target keywords and trending topics, but how are you going to get people to see it? Being able to network and being able to, work off a really good, flexible script for outreach and make those relationships to get your content in front of people and get your content posted on external sources is really the axiom of the whole content creation process. Not only do you rely on other people, but you have to know how to promote your own content, whether it's for a client or for the business you work for. You have to know how to promote that content via social media and the available network that hopefully you've built up for yourself. And last but not least, once content's created and promoted, that's not the end of the life cycle. Any intelligent SEO, and it's very good to establish this early on in your career, but any intelligent SEO specialist understands the value of re-optimizing content and repurposing existing content when it makes sense. If you have a blog post or an article that's 2 years old and the topic all of a sudden becomes relevant again, never hurts to go back, optimize, repurpose, and take advantage of the newfound interest in that topic.
Absolutely. Sujan did a great job talking about that in particular earlier today. So one question might come back to you about scale. So if I just diverge from your flow for a second, forgive me, but at what scale is it appropriate for a business to be concentrating on repurposing existing content? I mean, is it that some businesses are too small to think about that and just need to come up with an occasional new thing, or is this like for everybody?
I mean, this one man's opinion, but honestly, I think it's for everybody. Obviously, you're going to take labor constraints into account. If you're a small business and you only have 2 or 3 people, it might be a little more difficult. But at the end of the day, it's usually easier and more time effective to repurpose content instead of create new content. So, from a scaling perspective, if you have a company of any size that has a really good handle on the content that was created, is very organized and very detailed, being able to go back and repurpose content quickly can and should be something that really every business does.
Cool. Thanks for that.
No problem. And my last essential skill for the SEO beginner out of the 4 is tools and plugins. I could probably rewrite this slide every 5 minutes for the next month and not repeat myself, because digital marketing and search engine optimization tools and plugins and platforms, they come out that quickly. My first bullet point here is last, but certainly not least. This was a contender for the first essential skill, but I wanted to dedicate a little bit of time to it. When you are an SEO newcomer, whether you work in-house or whether you work at an agency, chances are the first thing you're going to be trained on is the tools that your company uses. It's one of the first things I was trained on back in 2006, and some of those tools I still use. So that training was extremely useful. But any SEO newcomer needs to understand their options or what they have at their disposal. And if they're in the position to make a call on this, free tools versus paid tools for each SEO function. There are some great tools out there like the Bright Edge and the Conductors of the world and LinkedX that kind of pride themselves on being a holistic, all-encompassing SEO tool. If you have access to them, fantastic. I know Moz is another one. But in most cases, you're kind of using an amalgamation of tools. You have a set of tools for keyword research. You have a set of tools for on-site optimization and error identification. You have a set of tools for rank tracking. You have a set of tools for optimizing content as you go. So being able to understand the tools and plugins that are available to you is extremely important. It's something that really should be researched monthly at the least frequent by an SEO newcomer. Just researching the tools at your disposal will build your knowledge base. Not only do you have to understand the tools, but you have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each tool. If you're going to be reporting data based on tools, you're going to have to understand things like, if SEMrush's data is from 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month ago, you're going to have to understand that, in duplicate page title errors that you send to a client from an export in Raven, that does not include pages that might have canonical tag or pagination on it, and some of that information can be ignored or put aside. That's something that comes with time, but the sooner an SEO beginner understands the limitations and strengths and weaknesses of each tool they use, the better. Being able to export and format, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a details guy and I'm an organization guy, but having a big glut of data, a big glut of black and white URLs and page titles and numbers is one thing, but more often than not, the SEO specialist, newcomer or veteran, is going to have to relay the information that that data represents to somebody else. So being able to use these tools at your disposal to export and or format data for user-friendly viewing, it's really important. I think it's a step that gets glossed over a lot. You know, if you're going to export something from the Google AdWords keyword planner, it's not really going to be too pretty. It's not something that you could just send the export to a client. So being able to put the time in to make that user friendly and be able to explain that is really valuable. I've never had a client that has been upset about getting data and getting reporting that they could actually understand. So it's worth the time. And I put a few recommended tools, and obviously there's no affiliate links or anything of that nature in these tools. This is just from a purely informational standpoint, but you know, these are some of the tools that we use that we like. Screaming Frog for site crawls, it's fantastic. Moz as really Moz and Raven as really all-encompassing SEO tools, from site crawls to CRMs to everything else. Those tools are fantastic and well worth the investment. SEMrush is almost an industry standard. It's almost a must-have tool in 2016. Searchmetrics is also a fantastic tool. I don't think gets enough credit. And Portent, another agency, actually has a really fantastic tool where you could type in pieces of content or pieces of on-page content like page titles and meta descriptions, and it gives you either a pass or fail on whether or not the title tag is too short or too long, which sounds really granular, but it's a fantastic tool. Beyond these 6 tools, I consider Microsoft Excel to be, or Google Sheets, if that's your cup of tea. That's probably one of the most powerful tools in the SEO specialist arsenal, especially an SEO beginner. I cannot stress this enough. Know Excel inside and out. It will never fail you. And also being able to navigate Google Search Console and Google Analytics, if you look at those as tools rather than platforms, that's also something that needs to be understood intimately by the SEO beginner. And I'll check and see how we're doing on time, but I did have some honorable mentions that didn't quite make it into the 4 essential skills. I'll keep these very brief. Staying up to date with industry trends, that is 100% a skill. Whether you do that via Twitter or whether you do that via an RSS feed reader, or whether or not you just visit 2 or 3 primary blogs that kind of act as content curators for the entire industry. Being able to expand upon the 4 essential skills by constant research and constant finger on the pulse of digital marketing and SEO trends, it's extremely important and something I'd recommend to any SEO professional at any level in their career. I went back and forth on this next bullet point, but you know, basic HTML knowledge, it does help, especially if you're responsible for a lot of content creation. I come from a marketing background. Sometimes I wish I came from a web development or a more technology-based background, but it hasn't been a necessity to really understand complex programming language or HTML or CSS to get me where I'm at right now in my career. But knowing it, at least the basics of HTML, it can really make your life a lot easier. And last honorable mention skill that I wanted to include, because this is becoming more and more widely used, is especially for an SEO beginner, being able to know how to work within a CRM system. Whether it's your Salesforce or your Nutshells of the world, those systems are becoming more and more prevalent in in-house settings and agency settings. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to have a really good understanding of the system that houses all of your tasks and all of your goals and all of your deadlines to be able to do your job well. So that's also something that should be at least understood at a base level by the SEO beginner.
That's great. That's all great stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
That's why I'm here, Michael. And I just wanted to include this this quote because honestly, what's a presentation without a quote, right? But this one is especially applicable. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Always sharpen your axe if you're an SEO beginner out there. Don't get too caught up in workload, and always try to improve your knowledge base and increase your knowledge base. Especially in this industry, no acquired skill or no acquired piece of knowledge ever goes to waste. And before I open things up for questions, I just wanted to give a hearty thank you to Anastasia and Michael and everyone else, all the attendees to this conference. Thank you for having me. I always like to discuss these topics. Obviously, I have to include a cheap plug in here, but if anyone listening to this is looking for an SEO agency or an SEO partner, you can contact LSEO at lseo.com. And anyone who watched this webinar, we will offer a complimentary SEO analysis too. And I also included some of my contact information, email address, my Twitter handle, Facebook, and LinkedIn page. If anyone ever needs to get a hold of me in the future for any SEO related items, or even if it's just to say hello.
That's great.
So
great. Thanks for sharing those contacts. And, if anybody is just beginning or starting out as an SEO or taking on some of those tasks that you so aptly illustrated here, they might think about using LSEO, the free offer to back them up on an audit maybe that they're working on or something, or to give them an idea about a competitor. Is that would that be a good use of that particular kind of offer?
Absolutely. That's something that we can absolutely provide, and something we would be glad to do.
Good. That's good. All right. Well, Eric, I can't thank you enough. That was very clear. The teacher in you shows. So your presentation was very, very clear and very straightforward. I like the way at the end you hint at the future for anybody who's an SEO beginner today. So, the idea of lifelong learning, it's part of everybody's history of work. I mean, you're going to change your job fairly rapidly over the course of your career. And, the avenues for SEOs I find are pretty rich. So if people are going to take on the learning when the opportunity presents itself, you could become a business analyst. You can become a data analyst. You can move into different aspects of it. You mentioned coding and programming and developing, and you learn about HTML, and then you learn about URLs, and then you learn about transport. And I mean, you can really follow the SEO thread to almost anything, it seems. So what would be the next step for Eric Munley?
Oh, for right now, I mean, I'm still learning. I've been in this for 10 years, but I know enough to know that I don't know everything. Really, I'm in this director position for about 7 months now. So there's even skills right now that I haven't acquired yet that I'm just really honing in on. Obviously, in a leadership position at an agency like LSEO. Really kind of learning how all the gears work together in an agency setting. So I'm going to be doing that for the foreseeable future, and bringing as much success to LSEO as I possibly can.
That's great. And do I detect, are you in Scranton, PA, or where are you located?
I am. Well, we're in Wilkes-Barre, PA, so it's about 15 miles south of Scranton.
Okay. Yeah. On my own personal map, they're very, very close to each other. But yeah, it's important to get to the local.
We group them together. Scranton, Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, that's great. So I see Anastasia, and I see our host down here at the bottom, and they doubtless want to unmute and jump in. But I just wanted to say thanks to everybody. Digital Olympus virtual conference. I learned a lot. I was making my notes off to the side here. There's things that I want to look up and people I want to meet. And I definitely want to follow up with you, Eric, and, with all the other speakers that I was happy to host, see what kind of connections we can build, because, anybody who quotes Benjamin Franklin is definitely a friend of mine.
We're on the same page.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Eric. Really appreciate all your help, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Michael, well, you know, starting a relationship by the same rush, and you never know how it's going to turn. So thank you very much for still having those relationships, renaming them. Appreciate that. I hope to see you really short, might be in US. So yeah, Eric, thank you very much for your insightful presentation, and thanks to each and every who were able to find the time to join us today, because we really appreciate that. And so we're keen to hear your feedback about how we can do it better. We know that we're struggling with some technical issues, so we will reconsider that for future. And so definitely we will learn. So that's kind of lessons that we've learned so far. So thank you very much to all our listeners and to all our speakers. And so I believe that's all for today. And we are going to definitely share videos. So a bit later, hopefully on this week. So thank you very much, guys, and have a lovely day and evening if we're in. Yes.
One last thing. When will the next Digital Olympus conference be?
So actually, I have an answer. Just because we are that kind of guys who has started to prepare everything in advance. And hopefully on this week we are going to launch new speakers, because we've already grabbed together a really nice lineup. And so that will be the first week of December, but the exact day we need just to coordinate this with our current speakers. But I can tell you that we're going to have Darren Shaw from White Spark. Also we are going to have, let me take a look, so I can just actually make kind of announcement. So yeah, I believe, yeah, we are going to have AJ, which is he has a candle, ACO. Actually, he's a really famous guy, as well as some other guys. And so that's like, you know, our current list. And so if someone is interested at speaking at Digital Olympus, go to our content forum and write to us. We were really keen to support especially young digital marketers, and we know how it's hard sometimes to pitch to conferences. So that's why we are especially open to those candidates. But if you're a well-known speaker, we are also happy to have you on board. So thanks to each and every. Have a lovely day. Hopefully I was able to answer it. Thank you, Mike, one more time.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, and see you soon.
Hugs and kisses.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.